Good morning. Welcome to Kitsap Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are, wherever you have come from, for this hour we are one gathered congregation, and all are welcome. Please rise in body or spirit to join in singing our musical call to worship, What Wondrous Love. That's hymn number 18 in the gray hymnal. The words will also appear on the screen. My name is Brian Watson, and I use he, him pronouns. I am a 55-year-old man with minimal hair, and I wear glasses. Today I'm wearing a corduroy blue, purple, and green plaid shirt that Liz's mother made for me. So I'm wrapped by that this morning. Some of you know, but some of you don't know, that I make my vocation as an artist. And I've carved a little tiny infinitesimal niche as an artist, making art for Unitarian Universalist individuals, groups, and churches around the country. It's plenty enough to keep me busy, believe me. And it's a blessing to do that. And including, I have several pieces here at the church, including this panel on the front of our pulpit. As someone whose vocation centers around the creative process, one of the things that I cherish about KUUF is our practice of co-creation. We come together with diverse backgrounds and unique gifts and foibles to create together something that none of us can create alone. Beloved community. I am so grateful for the opportunity to practice co-creating beloved community alongside each one of you. If you are visiting with us this morning, please participate however you feel comfortable. If you are here in person, we look forward to welcoming you after the service during our coffee hour. If you are attending online, if you'd like, please introduce yourself in the chat. Just so everybody knows, we regularly have people attending online, so our community is larger than just those of us who are in this sanctuary, this room, physical room today. Either way, in person or online, we are so glad that you're here. If you are here in the sanctuary, please take this moment to silence your electronic gizmos. Thank you. The announcements are available in our weekly email newsletter, The Candle, and I might also add that prior to the service, they also play on our screens up here. And if you're here for the first time, or if you've been coming recently, make sure that you get on our email list so that you can get our email newsletter sent to your inbox once a week. The sign-up sheet is out in the foyer. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the Aboriginal territory of the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers. The Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Our guest speaker this morning is Elisabeth Geschiere. Elisabeth is a descendant of Dutch Protestant Christian working-class immigrants who were mostly farmers. She is a full-time healthcare chaplain and newly fellowshipped Unitarian Universalist minister living in Seattle. Welcome, Elisabeth. And now I'll invite Elisabeth to come forward to deliver our opening words.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Let us open our hearts for worship with these words written by Sharon Wiley. They were written in, I believe, 2019 for the Trans Day of Visibility at that time. We speak so often of brokenness in religious life. So let us today speak of wholeness. You are welcome here. Every part of you, beautiful just the way it is. Here you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding. No exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here. Nothing to prove to me, or the person sitting next to you, or to the children, or to anyone. You don't have to try to be witty, or more quiet, or more outgoing. You are beautiful. Every part of you beautiful just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful just the way they are. You are extraordinary. Each and every one of you different and beautiful in your own beautiful way. Breathtaking. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome Amy Michael to come forward to light our chalice. Amy has been coming to KUUF since August, and she says she already feels like a part of the community because you are. You are. She loved attending the starting point classes, which recently concluded, is in the Creativity Matters group, and looks forward to getting more involved. Join me now in lighting our chalice. If you have your own chalice at home or a candle, you may light it now as I read our chalice lighting words. We light today's chalice with these words from Adrienne Maree Brown. If there happens to be a multitude of griefs upon you, individual and collective, or fast and slow, or small and large, add equal parts of these considerations, that the broken heart can cover more territory, that perhaps love can only be as large as grief demands, that grief is the growing up of the heart that bursts boundaries like an old skin or a finished life, that grief is gratitude, that your body will feel only as much as it is able to, that the ones you grieve may be grieving you, that the sacred comes from the limitations, that you are excellent at loving. Please join me as we speak our spoken affirmation together. The words will appear on the screen. We gather as a caring community, seeking life's deeper meanings. We value diversity and affirm the worth of all living things. We strive to speak truth in love, to act for justice, to grow in spirit, and to care for the earth. We celebrate with open hearts and minds the creative power that sustains and transforms us. Today, we start our tradition of lighting an Advent candle for each week in December. And week 1 is focused on hope. Many years ago, thousands of years ago, people who lived in the northern hemisphere were thought to have gathered wreaths of evergreens and lit fires as signs of hope in the coming of spring and the renewal of light. The custom was kept alive by Christians, and by the 16th century, the Advent wreath had gradually spread across many parts of the world. Today, Advent is the period of Sundays leading up to Christmas and winter solstice. It's also the time in the northern hemisphere when days are shortest, when cold settles in, and when people need the cheer brought by the promise of light and warmth. As we light one more candle each Sunday, this Advent wreath symbolizes our waiting experience. Week by week, the candles remind us that fear and hopelessness recede as more warmth enters the world. The flame of each new candle reminds us that more is yet to come. On this first Sunday in Advent, we light this candle of hope with the words of Macrina Wiederkehr, a Benedictine monastic. I was just thinking one morning during prayer how much alike hope and baking powder are. Quietly getting what is best in me to rise, awakening the hint of eternity within. To light today's first Advent candle, symbolizing hope, we have Josie Russell to help us. Thank you, Josie. May this candle awaken the best in us, connect us to the eternal, and give life to our hope. Please join in singing our Advent hymn, Let Christmas Come. This hymn was written by a Unitarian minister, Reverend Dr. John Hanley Morgan, who was a civil rights activist, a peace activist, and a poet. Let us rise in body or spirit to sing hymn number 224 in our gray hymnal. The words will also appear on the screen. Jude, can you get a towel,
It's okay.
please?
It happened just the other, like 2 weeks ago, the exact same thing.
Well, do be careful.
I will be careful. Good morning, everyone. My name is Melinda, and today I am wearing black glasses and a maroon shirt, and I have short reddish hair. I wasn't here last week because I, along with a couple other people from the congregation, Hannah and Ginny, was at Pilgrim Pines and Elisabeth was there too. I got to meet Elisabeth last week, getting OWL trained we were doing kindergarten through 6th grade. So that was quite exciting. I'm gonna step aside. Okay. All right, so this morning I'm going to be telling a story, but this month we're exploring the practice of presents. Now, I know many of us are excited about getting the winter holidays, but to be clear, our theme is not about the practice of presents, as in getting gifts, but in the practice of presence, as in being aware in the present moment. So with that in mind, I want to share a wisdom tale called Peter and the Golden Thread. Peter was a young boy who could never live in the moment. When he was in school, he dreamed of being outside playing. When he was outside playing, he dreamed of his summer vacation. Peter constantly daydreamed, never taking the time to savor the special moments that filled his days. One morning, Peter was out walking in a forest near his home. Feeling tired, he decided to rest on a patch of grass and eventually dozed off. After only a few minutes of deep sleep, he heard someone calling his name. "Peter, Peter," came a shrill voice from above. As he slowly opened his eyes, he was startled to see a striking woman standing above him. She must have been over 100 years old, and her snow-white hair dangled well below her shoulders like a matted blanket of wool. In this woman's wrinkled hand was a magic little ball with a hole in the center, and out of the hole, a long golden thread dangled. "Peter," she said, "this is the thread of your life. If you pull the thread just a little bit, an hour will pass in seconds. If you pull harder, whole days will pass in minutes. And if you pull with all your might, months, even years will pass by in days." Peter was very excited by this new discovery. "I'd like to have it if I may," he asked. The elderly woman quickly reached down and gave the ball with the magic thread to the young boy. The next day, Peter was sitting in the classroom feeling restless and bored. Suddenly, he remembered his new toy. As he pulled a little bit of the golden thread, he quickly found himself playing in his garden. Realizing the power of the magic thread, Peter soon grew tired of being a schoolboy and longed to be a teenager, with all the excitement that phase of life would bring. So again, he held the ball and pulled hard on the golden thread. Suddenly, he was a teenager with a wonderful girlfriend named Elise, but Peter still wasn't content. Instead, he dreamed of what adulthood might offer him. So again, he pulled hard on the thread, and many years flew by in an instant. Now, he found that he was transformed into a middle-aged adult. Elise was now his wife, and Peter was surrounded by a house full of kids. But Peter noticed something else. His once jet black hair had started to turn gray, and his once youthful mother, whom he loved so dearly, had grown old and frail. Yet all these new circumstances soon bored Peter, and he found himself dreaming and wondering about what the next stage of life might bring. So once again, he pulled on the magic thread and waited for the changes to appear. Peter now found that he was a 90-year-old man. His thick, dark hair had turned white as snow, and his once young wife, Elise, had also grown old and had passed away a few years earlier. His wonderful children had grown up and left home to lead lives of their own. For the first time in his entire life, Peter realized that he had not taken the time to embrace the wonders of each stage of living. He had never gone fishing with his kids or taken a moonlight stroll with Elise. He had never planted a garden or read those wonderful books his mother had loved to read. Instead, he had hurried through life, never resting to see all that was good along the way. Because he couldn't wait for what was next, he never noticed the amazing things waiting for him in the present. Peter became very sad at this discovery. He decided to go out to the forest where he used to walk as a boy to clear his head and warm his spirit. As he entered the forest, he noticed that the little saplings of his childhood had grown into mighty oaks. The forest itself had matured into a paradise of nature. He lay down on a small patch of grass and fell into a deep slumber. After only a minute, he heard someone calling out to him. "Peter, Peter," cried the voice. He looked up in astonishment to see that it was none other than the old woman who had given him the ball with the magic golden thread many years earlier. "How have you enjoyed my special gift?" she asked. "At first it was fun, but now I hate it," he responded bluntly. "My whole life has passed before my eyes without giving me the chance to enjoy it. Sure, there would have been sad times as well as great times, but I haven't had the chance to experience either. I feel empty inside. I have missed the gift of living." "You are very ungrateful," said the old woman. "Still, I will give you one last wish." "I'd like to go back to being a schoolboy and live my life over again," Peter quickly responded. Then he returned to his deep sleep. Again, he heard someone calling his name and opened his eyes. Who could it be this time, he wondered. When he opened his eyes, he was absolutely delighted to see his mother standing over his bedside. She looked young, healthy, and radiant. Peter realized that the strange woman from the forest had indeed granted him his wish and that he had returned to his former life. "Hurry up, Peter, you sleep too much. Your dreams will make you late for school if you don't get up right this minute," his mother admonished. Needless to say, Peter dashed out of bed and began to live the way he had hoped. He went on to live a full life, one rich with many delights, joys, and triumphs. But it all started when he stopped sacrificing the present for the future and began to live in the moment. This story is a wonderful reminder to slow down and fully be in the moment so that we can notice the many gifts that the present moment is trying to offer us. And that is such an important lesson to remember this time of year. You see, oftentimes as we move into the winter holiday season, our society tells us to focus on what we're going to get. It's all about preparing for the parties to come, the presents we will share later, and the fun we will have in a few weeks. And in doing so, we become like Peter in our story, always dreaming about what's to come and rushing toward it. But by focusing on what's to come, we often miss the gifts we already have, the gifts that have already been given to us, and that lay scattered almost everywhere we might look. So in the week and days ahead, may all of us, kids and adults alike, may we remember that our faith invites us to practice slowing down and pausing to notice the presence of treasures already here and gifts already given. Please now rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our children up to the Matin building.
We gather as a religious community to give each one of us a place where we can do the work of many. Together, our light is much brighter than a solitary flame. Now is the time when we share in the sacred act of giving, an expression of gratitude and generosity that breathes life into our mission. As part of this mission, we share our weekly offering with a local nonprofit agency providing services within our larger community. Our charitable giving recipient to close this month is the NAACP of Bremerton. In a moment, our ushers will pass baskets to collect the offering. Donations placed in the basket will go to the Bremerton chapter of the NAACP. If you would like your offering to be used for KUUF, please use one of the envelopes provided in the program you were given earlier. And for those of you joining us online, you may go to our website, kuuf.org, and select the Giving tab for PayPal and mailing information. If this is your first time at KUUF, please feel free to let the basket pass. Your presence is your gift. Now let this offering strengthen and sustain our beloved and sacred community. While the offering is happening, we will have a gift of music from our choir.
What sweeter music can we bring than a carol, than a carol? What sweeter music can we bring than a carol for to sing? What sweeter music can we bring than a carol, than a carol? What sweeter music can we bring than a carol for to sing? Awake the voice, awake the string, heaven, earth, and everything. Joy has come this December day, let sadness fly away. What music can we bring than a carol, than a carol? What music can we bring than a carol for to sing? We come in song, we flourish here, near the end of another year. Hearts be light and minds be strong, come join us in our song. What music can carol? What music can we bring? Then a carol for to sing. What sweeter music can we bring? Then a carol, carol, then a carol. What music can we bring? Then a carol to sing. What sweeter music can we bring? Then a carol to sing. Then a carol to sing. Then a carol for to sing.
That was fun. A huge thank you, by the way, to Alina Hemingway, who's our choir director, and helps make this magic happen for all of us singers, and to Brian Kenny, our music coordinator, who we just couldn't do this without for many reasons. And I also want to just mention, even though this wasn't one of his arrangements, Mike Menifee, who arranges so many of the pieces that the choir sings and that small groups and ensembles sing. So it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. Thank you. Now is the time in our service for the sharing of joys and sorrows. When shared together, our joys are amplified and our sorrows are lessened. We have a couple of sorrows for today. The first is that today, December 1st, is World AIDS Day. World AIDS Day commemorates all those who have succumbed to HIV disease globally. And it is a day when we still hold out hope for the promise of an eventual cure. Bonner Sams's sorrow is for all those he's known who have passed because of it. He has a joy and immense gratitude for all the advances in treating HIV with the advent of antiretroviral treatments that have saved countless lives. We have another sorrow today from Joe Walter. Joe says, "My mom passed away peacefully at home earlier this month. She was 88 years old and had lived with us for 24 years. I'm feeling grateful for the in-home hospice program and Washington State's Death with Dignity law that enabled her to choose the time and place of her life's ending." We're with you, Joe. As we hold these sorrows within our hearts, let us light one last candle for those joys and sorrows that are still too tender to share.
I now invite you into a spirit of prayer or meditation with these words by Judith Quarles. How shall we pray? First, let us be open to the silence. Let us hear the sounds in this room, the noises outside, and the comfortable murmur from the children just with us. Let us begin to hear the soft beating of our hearts, and let us listen intently for messages from within. Next, let us feel gratitude for our lives and for our beautiful earth. As hard as life gets, As sad or lonely as we sometimes feel, let us always be warmed by the gifts of this life with gratitude. Next, let us hold in our hearts all those known or unknown who are in need. May we find in ourselves the energy and knowledge to bring care into the world. And finally, let us be aware of the blessing that it is not ours alone to do the work of the world. Love and community work wonders that we by ourselves could never manage. In this time of silence, let us form our own prayers out of the concerns of our heart. Blessed be, may it be so, and amen. Please remain seated as we sing Spirit of Life, hymn number 123 in our gray hymnal. The words will appear on your screen. I love that song, and it felt too short, but good news is we're going to sing again. But first, hearkening back to the words of our chalice lighting this morning, I invite you to ponder what has broken your heart this week or this past month. What grief, individual or collective, fast or slow, are you carrying with you today? I invite you to just pause and reflect on this question for a moment. Thank you. And now I invite you to join me in learning a new and simple song called Carry This All by Alexandra or Ale Blakely. Ale is a local Seattle singer-songwriter and artist and grief tender. And the lyrics are very simple. I think they'll appear on the screen. Are they there? Okay, almost. Wonderful. So I'll just read them first so we hear them, and then Alina is going to help us learn the song. You do not carry this all alone. No, you do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone. So as we get to know this song, I would invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and specifically to beam the song to one another in the room. Because obviously the whole message is that we are not alone, even when things feel difficult or heavy. So you might beam with smiles, with your voice, with your hands on your heart. And if you don't feel like singing, you could hum or just silently beam the message with love and gusto to one another in this room. So we'll sing it through at least 3 times together.
All right. Beginning goes like this, and then you'll repeat after me, okay? You do not carry this all alone. Your turn.
You do not carry this all alone.
And then it's almost the same. You do not carry this all alone. Your turn.
You do not carry this all alone.
Then, this is way too big for you to carry it on your own. Can we do it?
This is way too big for you to carry this on your own.
And then just the beginning line again.
So you not carry this all alone.
Can we do it?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
You do not carry this all alone. You do not carry this all alone.
Now up higher.
This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this on your own.
Let's do it again. Remember, the first 2 lines are almost the same, so we'll go down lower, okay?
You do not carry this all alone. You do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone. You do not carry this all alone. You do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone.
I learned that beautiful song earlier this year at a grief retreat co-facilitated by the writer of the song, Ale Blakely, and Lawrence Cole, who is also a song catcher and grief tender. They opened the retreat by naming and honoring some of their grief teachers, and 2 of these important teachers were Sabonfu Some and Maladome Some. By the way, can you hear me okay in the back? I get nervous about how close I need to be. We're good? Okay. So Lawrence narrated some of Maladome's life story, as he was the first teacher Lawrence had at about the age of 35, and he is now in his 80s. He shared how Maladome was removed from his community of the Dagara people in Burkina Faso at a very young age and endured abuse in Jesuit boarding schools for 16 years. How Maladome reintegrated into his village as a young adult and went on to study in France, the country that colonized his people. And there he awakened to a very important recognition. These people don't know how to grieve, how to stay open, and so they have no wisdom. And so, as the story goes, Malidome and Sibonfu were later sent by the Dagara elders to teach grief rituals in the West. Emissaries of soul medicine for the soul disease that is colonialism. In an article published this October entitled "A Perspective on Thanksgiving" by the United Indians of All Tribes Foundation, this group, which is based in King County and Seattle, reflects. For many natives, Thanksgiving intertwines themes of loss, resilience, and a redefined sense of generosity. Understandably, the legacy of Thanksgiving will forever be linked to centuries of systemic oppression and colonization experienced by Native peoples. The article goes on to uplift how fundamental generosity is, or sharing abundantly is, to so many Native cultures, communities, and practices. And later the article continues, despite somber reflection surrounding Thanksgiving, the holiday is also used by many Native people as a time to honor their ancestors, celebrate cultural survival, and advocate for Indigenous rights. This duality of mourning and resilience embodies the strength and enduring spirit of Native peoples. In his book on grief called The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Francis Weller writes, "Grief both acknowledges what has been lost and ensures that we don't forget what must be remembered. But as my former dean at Vanderbilt Divinity School, Emily M. Towns, has said, you cannot remember what you never knew," referring to the colonial strategy of forgottenness, as she calls it. Forgottenness helps explain how it is possible that we, as citizens of these United States, have not risen up en masse over the fact that our tax dollars are funding the Israeli army and continuing to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza and southern Lebanon. After all, if we have not collectively remembered and reckoned with our own nation's horrific histories of slavery and genocide, how can we know what has been lost and what is still being lost? Not just over there, but here. It is easier to forget what we don't wish to remember. I feel so grateful to be a Unitarian Universalist in times like these, on a day like today, a day when it is a Sunday after Thanksgiving, and on this first Sunday of Advent, in which we lit the hope candle. A day when we can come together to seek and find the ancient soul medicine that is grief, lament, and mourning. It is good to be you in this case because of the good news of our faith that is liberating love at the center. After all, there is only love where there is loss. There is only loss where there is love, and vice versa. My dear former professor, Dr. Rogers Vaughn, was the first one to teach me this, that, as he put it, grief is love in absence. You've probably heard something like this. There are many popular sayings about love and grief now from various people who work in grief care or hospice or studying grief. However, today I want to focus on the expression of grief that we call lament for two particular reasons. The first is that while grieving can have kind of a personal or private connotation, lament has a public connotation. In lament, we weep or we wail, we mourn or we rage, we cry, scream, flail. We passionately employ songs, poetry, or any form of art to insist that our pain and suffering be witnessed. Whether that witness be a pillow in our bedroom, or the heavenly stars, a god or many goddesses, or fellow human beings. The second reason I want to focus on lament is that it contains political possibility and power. A very profound example of how lament can be political and therefore prophetic is described in a book entitled Dangerous Voices by Gail Holst Warhaft, which examines how the government of Greece has almost fully eradicated the tradition of professional women mourners because their lamentations posed a threat to the justification of war. Pause to breathe in this truth with me. A government outlawed women from publicly mourning the deaths of its country's young people at war because their lamentations were not good for the economy. Another example of lament being political and prophetic that comes to my mind are the student protest encampments that took place at major universities all across the United States last spring, that were acts of resistance to their institutions and our nation's complicity in the genocide in Gaza. As we witnessed, their scenes of lament were not met with praise or university accolades, but instead with brutal police violence. It seems like a lot of us Unitarian Universalists are not particularly practiced at lament. In fact, in studying for this homily, I learned from an article in UU World Magazine by Miriam Renaud that not a single hymn or reading in Singing the Living Tradition is categorized as lament. We have a couple on grief, maybe a couple on sorrow, but not lament. This is all the more interesting because of our Judeo-Christian heritage and the fact that there's a whole book in the Hebrew Bible called Lamentations. Yet, as we've already kind of touched on, we know that our UU subculture swims in the waters of the dominant US culture in which the systems of white supremacy, heteropatriarchy, capitalism, and colonialism work tirelessly to deny death and suffering, to minimize grief, or really to minimize any so-called negative emotions. Social media posts constantly tell us that we should be happy. Here's what you need to be happy. Buy this product to be happy. Black Friday all but consumes a holiday dedicated to gratitude and generosity. Something I have learned from several different womanist scholars is that every ideology has a theology. I'll say that again. Every ideology has a theology. This simply means to me that every idea or system or set of beliefs set of ideas has a belief or a value underneath it at its foundation. For example, patriarchy is an ideology about men being better than women, which, boo. You know, we're not on board with that one. But some of the theology that's behind that, for example, comes from the idea, the belief that God is a male God, that God created Adam first, that Eve was the one to sin first by eating the apple. And so the list goes on and on. These are the harmful theologies that uplift this ideology of patriarchy. So what this means for us is that the work of liberation is not simply about policy changes or systems changes, but also about deconstructing the theologies that have manifested so much harm and death, and constructing, or perhaps we could say resurrecting, new life-giving theologies that can seed and germinate and grow into delicious and nutritious fruit. So once again, love at the center is an example of fruit, we could say, of a life-giving theology that comes from the deeply rooted trees of Unitarianism and Universalism in our living tradition. Love at the center is good news. And it is an ideal starting point for constructing theologies of grief and lament. For where there is love, there is loss. So what is a UU theology of lament that can liberate us toward lamenting? There's a feminist theologian named Mary McClintock Fulkerson who built her work on the idea that theology is a response to a wound. Some other theologians building on her work summarized it this way. In its most primary sense and purpose, theology is a visceral and sensual response to hurts and harms. Oh, I don't really have any water left. That's very funny. Thank you. I'm actually going to go off script for a second and insert here that this reminds me of how the phrase visceral and sensual response to hurt and harm reminds me of how the Sunday after Election Day I went to the church I attend, which is University Unitarian in Seattle. And as soon as the doxology, which is our opening song, began, I found myself weeping. And throughout the rest of the service, I spent most of my time crying or trying not to cry. Even as a chaplain, I do that to myself sometimes. And then when the service was done and I went to go light a candle at the table we have in the back, it happened again. And I just sat down and I wept for probably 20 minutes. I also remember this one time when I was biking through Minneapolis, where I used to live, on a beautiful fall day in my late 20s. And, oh, I forgot to describe myself. I'm so sorry. I'm not used to that practice. So I'll pause here and say I am a fair-skinned, redheaded person with a short bouffant hairstyle, and I have freckles. Oh, thank you so much. And I'm wearing a navy blue clerical collar and green shirt and tan sweater with a green stole. So thank you for your graciousness for those of you who might have needed that sooner. Oh, and I'm 37, which is why I was reminded of this, because this story was from my late 20s. So the point is that I was fully an adult and decided it would be fun to bike through a pile of leaves on a nearby curb, or near a curb. And I couldn't see that the leaves had wetness at the bottom and were slippery, and so I immediately fell sideways, landed on my left knee, cried out in pain, and teared up. And there was a person walking by on the sidewalk who didn't stop, didn't ask if it was okay, if I was okay. And to this day, I am pretty sure that I cried, not because my knee actually hurt that badly, but because it hurt that my fellow human being just ignored my fall. So this is where a UU theology of lament begins. By asking ourselves and each other, with compassion and genuine curiosity, where does it hurt? I'm reading a book right now called What It Takes to Heal: How Transforming Ourselves Can Change the World by Prentice Hemphill, in which they reflect on how oppressive ideologies, which become systems, the aforementioned, cut us off from the wisdom of our own bodies. They write, somewhere along the way, we are taught to stop feeling instead of being taught to stop what harms us, as though feeling were the enemy, as though the feelings were hurting us. To move forward and address the harm, we have to feel. So when we ask, where does it hurt? What arises? We might be surprised by our own responses. Perhaps, like Prentice, we were hurt by being cut off from our own feelings, and our own ability to lament and grieve has been stunted. Perhaps one of your wounds is that you have a hard time knowing how you personally feel, let alone expressing those emotions. I can really relate to this, for I grew up in a Dutch-American family of Calvinists who, as you may or may not be aware, are not known for being very touchy-feely people. And in this subculture, I was taught to believe that thinking, the mind, was far superior to feeling. And in my role in the family, I tried to manage the big explosive emotions of other family members by tending to them and not listening to my own body or heart. So as an adult, and especially as a chaplain, it has become an ongoing practice to really learn to pay attention to how I feel and to find healthy ways of expressing my feelings. I don't think even 3 years ago I would have gone to church and wept without really worrying about what people were thinking about me. So if the first step in a UU theology of lament is to ask, where does it hurt? Then you all just participated in the second step, which is to witness. To witness the experience and stories of pain and suffering that emerge in response. Now, witnessing is first and foremost a simple practice of deep listening, without talking, of being present. I love that the theme of this month is presence, to how we ourselves feel, or how the person we are caring for feels, or how a group in society might feel. Witnessing is knowing that silence is a form of communication. Yet witnessing is also a skilled practice that takes hard work and spiritual and emotional capacity, especially when we live in a culture that is hell-bent on distracting us from being present to pain or suffering. This is part of why our lay ministers in our tradition are trained in pastoral care, and they work together as a team with the minister. Notably, I have experienced that my ability to truly witness others' pain and suffering as a chaplain, whether one-to-one relationally or globally, is directly proportional to my ability to witness my own pain and suffering. In other words, the more present I become to my own wounds, the more present I am to care for others' wounds. I feel like this is often something that people miss or find counterintuitive or unexpected. So I'll say that again. The more present one is to your own wounds, the more present you can be to care for others' wounds. However, as we say, we are a people of deed, not creed, so we cannot simply stop there. Once ample witnessing has been offered, a UU theology of lament can continue to ask those who are most acutely suffering, those most impacted by a particular violence or harm, is there anything we can do to alleviate the pain, to repair, to stop the violence, to heal, to prevent more harm from taking place? This, for example, would be the step in which we can turn to our Palestinian American neighbors and say, how can we work together to stop this genocide? Or to our Coast Salish neighbors, or to all of our indigenous and Black kin, and say, what would true reparations look like? You see, beloveds, if justice is what love looks like in public, as Dr. Cornel West has said, then so too justice is what lament looks like in public. And so a UU theology of lament resists with every cell in our collective body the myth of individualism by singing over and over until it is part of our cultural DNA. You do not carry this all alone. No, you do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone. Now is an opportune time not only for UU theologies of lament and grief, but hymns, songbooks, art, stories, curriculum, rituals, and more. May it be so, blessed be, and amen.
Please rise in body or spirit to sing our closing hymn, which is number 1064 in the teal hymnal, the paperback hymnal. This is Blue Boat Home, a classic. And our choir is going to lead us. This is a slightly different version than what's printed in the hymnal. Just go with what the choir is doing. You will get it.
Thank you.
after the service today. Coffee and tea will be served out in our foyer. Please take this time to connect with one another in our beloved community. You're welcome to bring your beverages and whatever finger foods are out there back into the sanctuary, or go outside and enjoy this beautiful day if you wish. And now our closing words.
I invite you to take a deep breath with me. We extinguish this flame, but not its warmth and meaning in our hearts. As we return to our daily lives, may we grow more courage to feel all our feelings. May we practice bearing witness to all that is. May we lament loudly and disruptively whenever and wherever we encounter injustice. May our tears flow freely from love toward liberation. And may we always remember we do not carry this all alone. Thank you. Go in peace.
And before you, one more announcement, actually two. At 11:45, the grief support group is going to be meeting in the Elmore room, which is just outside of these doors over here behind you, and that way, in that corner. So it's the grief support group at 11:45. Also at 11:45 will be the wonderful New to UU, or New to Unitarian Universalism workshop, which will be held right here in the sanctuary at 11:45. I encourage all of you who are newish, or have been here for years and you just want to be part of it, please come. Bring your coffee, tea, and food right back in here to the sanctuary. That will be at 11, probably more like noon, not 11:45, let's say noon, right here in the sanctuary. Thank you all. Go in peace.